तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गणन्ति भूरिदा जना. Your words are like nectar, bringing life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome, everyone, to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. I'm trying to get the pictures in the background so you can all see the shrine. Okay. We're still on the chapter Ahmed Dakshineswar, part 1, and it's Monday, December 24th, 1883. And Sri Ramakrishna has been staying with, has been staying with Sri Ramakrishna for the past couple of weeks. This is the longest stay that he had in Dakshineswar with Sri Ramakrishna. So this is a very special period in his life. We're in page 360, Ahmed Dakshineswar, part 1. Mostly he's talking to M. They were together in the pine grove, just going for a walk. Sri Ramakrishna stood up. There was silence all around, disturbed only by the gentle rustling of the pine needles and the murmuring of the Ganges. The master went to the Panchavati and then to his room, talking all the while with M. The disciple followed him, fascinated. At the Panchavati, Sri Ramakrishna touched with his forehead the raised platform around the banyan tree. This was the place of his intense spiritual discipline, where he had wept bitterly for the vision of the Divine Mother, where he had held intimate communion with her, and where he had seen many divine forms. This is a Panchavati. This is the grove of the 5 different trees that Thakur himself planted, and he had his vision of the Divine Mother, but also most of his other sadhanas, except for the tantric sadhanas, took place in this area. When Totapuri came, that hut is right next to this Panchavati, so this is considered very, very sacred by the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. And we know that Thakur was not one to be too formal about things, because they would have picnics there and then have food there and everything. So it's not like everyone had to feel it was such a sacred, holy place that you can't laugh and have fun. And there were big creepers that would hang down that the boys could swing on, and they would sit there and dangle their legs over the side and everything. Now, unfortunately, of course, I haven't been there for a while, but I know that all the trees had died, and the remaining banyan tree, that it was falling apart. There was a fire at one time, and I think they've tried to plant something now, but it was impossible to maintain something like that. They tried, but anyhow, that area where the Panchavati was is still considered very sacred. The master and M passed a cluster of bakul trees and came to the Nahabat. Hazra was there. The master said to him, "Don't eat too much and give up this craze for outer cleanliness. People with the craze do not attain knowledge. Follow conventions only as much as necessary. Don't go to excess." The master entered his room and sat on the couch. Yeah, this is something called Shuchibai that we see in the lives of one of Holy Mother's nieces, Nalini, and others, were constantly worried about purity and constantly having to bathe and sprinkle themselves with Ganges water, and always worried, are they getting polluted by the touch of this or that and everything. And Thakur used to say three types of people will have difficulty realizing God. One, those who have bankamon, that have a crooked heart, that have something crooked within, that's not very honest and straightforward. And those who are constantly questioning things, samshayatma, those who are very skeptical by nature, and as soon as you say something, you say, I don't believe it. Those type of people. And people who have this shuchivai, that are always worried about the external and outer cleanliness and purity and things like that. So Thakur didn't care for all of these very strict rules about things. Sri Ramakrishna was resting after his midday meal when Surendra, Ram, and other devotees arrived from Calcutta. It was about 1 o'clock. While M was strolling alone under the pine trees, Harish came there and told him that the master wanted him in his room. Harish was living with Sri Ramakrishna at this time. Someone was going to read from the Shiva Samhita, a book containing instructions about yoga and the 6 centers. M entered the room and saluted the master. The devotees were seated on the floor, but no one was reading the book. Sri Ramakrishna was talking to the devotees. Master, the Gopis cherished ecstatic love for Krishna. There are 2 elements in such love, I-ness and mineness. I and mine, we can say, this aham and mama, and I-ness is the feeling that Krishna will be ill if I do not serve him. In this attitude, the devotee does not look upon his ideal as God. Now, this is one of the instances where the path of devotion and the path of knowledge look at things from an opposite point of view. I won't say they contradict each other. They look at things from completely different points of view, that I and mine are the 2 main obstacles in spiritual life for the jnani. This feeling of I is ego, and this feeling of mind is possession. I own this, this is mine. It all goes back to the body consciousness and everything. The devotee wants to have that feeling of I and wants to have pride. The jnani can't have any pride. The devotee wants to be proud that Krishna is mine, that I'm a devotee of God. And possessive, that, yes, this is my Gopala, like Mother Yashoda. They'll have that attitude. The same with Namarupa, we've seen this, name and form. The jnani has to get rid of all name and form. Devotee loves name and form. So different paths have different ways of looking at all of these things. We're trying to go beyond name and form. One utilizes it and one dispenses with it. Same thing with I and mine. We want to go beyond this ordinary sense of I and ordinary sense of possessiveness. The one does it by just saying, nothing is mine and this ego is unreal. The other does it by identifying with something spiritual. The sense of mind is not with regard to their house and their children and family and everything, is with regard to God. So both of them are achieving the same type of thing, transcending ordinary binding sense of I and mind, but with 2 different methods. Now, this is interesting. In this attitude, the devotee does not look upon his ideal as God. Now, did the Gopis not know that Sri Krishna was God? This is an interesting question, because in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, we have the other point of view, that those who simply have this loving attitude and thinking of someone as a human being, it's ordinary type of love. There has to be this feeling that God is there. The Gopis, it wasn't that they didn't know the divine nature of Krishna, they didn't care so much about that. It was the human side. This I mention every time Swami Bhuteshanandaji that I'm reading his commentary on the gospel. He makes a long point about the importance of the human side of the avatar, more important than the divine side. The Ishvara side is left behind, and the human side is emphasized when God takes human form. He makes a very long, very beautiful points about that. So the same thing here, that it's this human personality that is that source of attraction for them. And Not that they didn't want to realize that he's divinity itself, but this idea that uh, he has this divine manifestations, Aishwarya, all of that. This they didn't care for. They wanted to, they're just to see that their object of their love, and Mother Yashoda, her loving child, who was dependent upon her for everything. So this was their attitude. Minus is to feel that the beloved is my own. The gopis had such a feeling of minus towards Krishna that they would place their subtle bodies under his feet, lest his souls should get hurt. Yashoda remarked, I don't understand your Chintamani Krishna. To me, he is simply Gopala. Chintamani Krishna, I am not familiar with this term, but I'm guessing. Chintamani is this type of stone that if you touch it, sometimes they say it's sparshamani, it's parushmani. If you touch it, then your desire will be fulfilled. So it means they don't care for Krishna, who can fulfill desires, who's like the Kamadhenu, the wish fulfilling tree. They want their simple Krishna. There may be some other technical meaning, Chintamani Krishna, but anyhow, this is the feeling that we get, that this is with divine power, that he can fulfill any desire. They don't care for that. They want the Krishna that needs them to serve him, not that he can do everything for everybody. Yeah.
What does it mean by they would place the subtle bodies under his feet?
Yeah, I don't know. There must be some incident or something, but it simply means that even the physical body to lay in front. You know the story, the incident in the life of Swami Gunatitananda, that they were he was with Holy Mother and one of this ox cart or something going on the village road, and it was nighttime, and he saw that there was a big chunk of road that was gone, and he knew that either the cart would break or it would disturb Holy Mother's sleep, something like that. So he got out, he ran ahead, and he laid his body there, so the cart would go over his body and wouldn't disturb her. So fortunately, she woke up and saw, and wouldn't allow it to happen, of course. But this is that same type of feeling, that such love that they're willing to, physical body or subtle body, that they want to do something so that the beloved is not disturbed in any way. So the point is just that feeling of love. I don't know why, especially the subtle body. Hmm? Yeah. Yes, subtle body. The gopis also said, oh, where is Krishna, our beloved? Where is Krishna, our sweetheart? They were not conscious of his being God. That means they didn't keep it in their awareness, that would cause some feeling of separation, some feeling of shyness, or some feeling that they have to stand at a distance, something like that. They didn't want to focus on that. It is like a small child saying, my daddy. If someone says to the child, no, he is not your daddy, the child says, yes, he is my daddy. God incarnating himself as man behaves exactly like a man. So this is the point that Thakur makes over and over again. Now, exactly like a man, but of course, different in so many ways. Exactly like a man, it means also has to sleep and eat and drink and answer calls of nature, and will have some good days and bad days, and will sometimes feel some sadness, some a little bit like that, of all of that. Otherwise, completely different. Inwardly, no attachment to anything. This enjoying that bliss of God consciousness. Sometimes aware of his real nature as divine, sometimes not. There's another interesting point, that when and how does the avatar understand that he's an avatar? And is that consciousness always there? So the Swami Bhutishananda, he says, no, sometimes they'll have that awareness, that it'll come at a certain period in life, and that it won't always be there. Otherwise, it's hard to live in the world and mix with people and everything. So they also accept this limitations of being a human being. They accept that and they understand it and they live in that realm. Otherwise, we couldn't relate to them. This is called a Nara Leela. This is that play. Just like an expert actor, he'll give that example. God incarnating himself as man behaves exactly like a man. That is why it is difficult to recognize an incarnation. This is actually one of the signs of an incarnation. How few people recognize them during their lifetime. Thakur mentions this as one. We see it in the life of Christ, the life of Buddha. They had a handful of followers. But then after they passed away, it increased. We see that power growing and growing. But how do we recognize it? Most of the people thought he was simply mad. Bhagavad Thakur, he was that mad Thakur of Dakshineswar. They really couldn't understand. And even those who appreciated him, not all of them understood him to be an avatar. Of course, this is a little different, say with the Swamiji and everything. That was because they are looking at it from a different philosophical point of view. He has the same hunger, thirst, disease, grief, and sometimes even fear. Rama was stricken with grief for Sita. Krishna carried on his head the shoes and wooden stool of his father, Nanda. In the theater, when an actor comes on the stage in the role of a holy man, he behaves like one, and not like the actor who was taking the part of the king. He plays his own role. Once, an impersonator dressed himself as a world-renouncing monk. Pleased with the correctness of his disguise, some rich people offered him a rupee. He did not accept. The rupee was a fair amount at that time. It's not like today. He did not accept the money, but went away shaking his head. Afterwards, he removed his disguise and appeared in his usual dress. Then he said to the rich people, "Please give me the rupee." They replied, "Why? You went away refusing our present. Why do you ask for it now?" The man said, "But then I was in the role of a holy man. I could not accept money." Likewise, when God becomes man, he behaves exactly like a man. When we look at the life of Sri Ramakrishna, we say exactly like a man, but who can be like that? He's such a high standard that it's impossible for anyone else. But we know what he means. The same hunger, thirst, and ups and downs, everything. At Vrindavan, one sees many places associated with Krishna's life. Surendra. We were there during the holidays. Visitors were continually pestered for money. The priests and others asked for it continually. We told them that we were going to leave for Calcutta the next day, but we fled from Vrindavan that very night. Master, what is that? Shame. You said you would leave the place the next day and ran away that very day. What a shame. Now, before we start thinking too poorly of Surendra, I wanted to read a little bit about him because he played a very, very important role in the life of Sri Ramakrishna and the life of the Ramakrishna order. And sometimes when we read sections of the gospel, we don't get a full picture of these people. If we're not careful, we can get a very bad conception of Adhar. Always trying to get a raise, get a bigger job and everything. But we forget what a fantastic devotee, how much he loved Sri Ramakrishna, how many times Thakur went to his house. We forget these things. Ishan, he gets a big scolding, that one chapter advice to Ishan, that we think that the poor old man, that he's done nothing in his life, that still wants a little importance and everything. But he was, they say, equally as generous and charitable as Vidyasagar, who was legendary that way. So the same thing with this Surendra. He was a little bit of a complicated person, that generous and miserly at the same time. There's one incident where he says to Sri Ramakrishna people don't understand that some people can give away money easily. Some it hurts them to give a little bit, something like that. But he was so generous. Anyhow, let me read a little bit about his life. He was born in 1850 and died in 1890. So lived a short life, only 40 years. Uh, he was householder devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, and one of his rasadar, the Thakur said that there will be certain people, he said four, who will be the ones who will look after my worldly needs, suppliers of my needs. And Mathur Babu, of course, was the most important, Shambhu Malek, and Balaram Bose. And then maybe he was half. Why he said that. Anyhow, so he looked upon him that way. So it says he was one of Sposhta Vakta. He was very straight talking. He didn't mince words with anything. What he felt, he said. So that way he was very honest. In his early life, he was an atheist. And let's see. Ramchandra Datta was his friend for about 30 years. And Manamohan Mitra, who was also related to Ramchandra Datta, they were very enthusiastic about taking this non-believer, Abhishashi, this Surendra, this atheist, taking him to Dakshineswar to meet Sri Ramakrishna. This will be before the direct disciples started coming. But as soon as he heard these nectar words of Sri Ramakrishna, then he was completely overwhelmed. And at that time, all of his waking hours he spent thinking of Sri Ramakrishna. He went to Dakshineswar many times, and Thakur also went to his home many times in Shimulia, and blessed him when he went there. As a result of all of this, then peace came into the life of Surendra, but we find that at different times he felt people didn't understand him. He was very sensitive. When he had a puja at his house, if they didn't come, one time he gave a mala to Sri Ramakrishna and he took it off. So he was very sensitive that way. But he looked upon Thakur as his guru. And in his home, they used to do this Annapurna, Jagadhatri Puja, Durga Puja. They did that one time. And it was at his house that Sri Ramakrishna saw Swamiji for the first time. Yeah, Narendra, everyone knew he was a good singer. So whenever there was some type of get-together at a devotee's house, they would call for him. So he would come and sing. That was the first time that Thakur laid eyes on him, and the first time he saw Sri Ramakrishna. But it wasn't a significant meeting that would come later. Yeah, but it was the first time that it happened. And he used to spend a lot of money on all of these things, but it brought him great joy to do all of this. When Thakur was in Kashipur, then he bore the major portion of the expense, which was a large expense. There was a lot of people who were staying there. They had the rent, they feed everybody. It was quite a large expense. So this is why Thakur called him one of his rasadas. And he used to spend a lot of money to celebrate Sri Ramakrishna's birthday, even while he was living and then even afterwards. And after Thakur died, of course, we know that story that he had some vision or dream, I don't remember, where Thakur said that, look, these boys, they have no place to stay and everything. And so he said, the little money I used to give for Thakur at Kashipur, now I'll give for all of you at Baranagar. So they used to say, blessed, don't know, blessed is he. So that they had great love and respect for him, and he played a very important role in the growth of the order and everything, because they had nobody. They had nobody who really cared for them, or they all thought, oh, what are these young boys doing? They should go home now. They should get jobs or finish their school and everything. So it was very few. Swamiji used to say there was only one who really believed in all of us. You remember who? And she was a woman, uh, Holy Mother. Yeah, he used to say she was the one who really. But there were some others, of course. So this Surendra, he worked in an office. Now, this is another interesting thing. Yeah, they mentioned the name of it. I don't know, but he was some type of business. You remember? Auction. Auction. Yeah, auction. Okay, and this is another very nice incident in his life when Sri Ramakrishna said to him once, this occurs in another place. He said, "Look at this surrender. Surrender. Normally, I can't take the food of people who earn their money by telling lies and things." Now, Thakur had this idea that people who did things in business, they had to tell lies a little bit, and even this idea of making a profit on something struck him as a little bit not pure honesty or something. You buy something cheap, sell it expensive, something like that. This is why when the Marwaris, who he respected very much, and he said real Hindus and everything, but he couldn't eat their food. So he said to this Surendra, normally I can't touch the food of people who earn their money like that. He said, but you know why? I can eat your food because you're so generous. You give away more than you get. So he'll scold him for being miserly, but he praised him for how generous he was. Then he gives a very beautiful illustration. He says when the farmer is bringing water into his field, he digs the canal, the channel there, and every once in a while he'll make holes in the side so that when the water comes, the rush of the water isn't so strong it breaks the wall completely. It can leak out in different places. And he said where that leaking out of that water allows the rest of it to get to the field, and when it leaks out, it carries that silt with it, and the area around that channel is very good for agriculture also. So he said this is what charity is like. He said those who try to keep all of their money, it'll break the banks. It won't even get to the field. Those who give away, then even what they give, everything becomes very fertile for them. So he used that illustration with regard to this Surendra. So very, very dedicated, and his life really. See, there's several Yiddish ghosts, of course we know, and Surendra, and what was his name? I can't think now. That either they were drinkers or they ran around or they had no faith. Their lives were completely transformed. Kali Krishna, huh? Kali Ghosh. Yeah. So there were several like that. And he was one of them. Life was completely transformed and very, very dedicated soul. But he's going to get a good scolding here. This is just to defend him a little bit. So the master, what is that? Shame. You said you would leave the place the next day and ran away that very day. What a shame. Surendra, embarrassed. Here and there, we saw the Babajis in the woods practicing spiritual disciplines in solitude. Thakur's not going to let him go. Master, did you give them anything? Surendra, no, sir. Master, that was not proper of you. One should give something to monks and devotees. Those who have the means should help such persons when they meet them. I went to Vrindavan with Mathur Babu. The moment I came to the Dhruva Ghat at Mathura, in a flash, I saw Vasudeva crossing the Yamuna with Krishna in his arms. There's a footnote. There's a bathing place in the Yamuna where, according to tradition, Vasudeva, the father of Krishna, crossed the river carrying the newborn child through a stormy night. One evening, so Sri Ramakrishna, he's not really scolding and he's not really angry. And Surendra took it very well. Sometimes he'll sulk, go in the corner and sulk, but he also took it well. Now he's telling him about his experience in Vrindavan. One evening, I was taking a stroll on the beach of the river. There were small thatched huts on the beach and big plum trees. It was the cow dust hour. Godhuli Shomoy. This I remember my very first trip to India. I went to Vrindavan, and no, I'm sorry, it was my second trip, and I remember uh, how sweet it is when you go to that area. See, the Jamuna in most of the area, it's completely dry, especially at that time of year, the time of year that I was there, and it's just full of dust. It's like cake, and when the cows come, you can see that the sun is setting, so it's kind of hazy a little bit, and the dust is being raised by their feet, and villagers, everybody who's walking there, everything is Radhesham, Radhesham is really is quite an atmosphere there. I loved it at Vrindavan. Where am I? So it was the cow dust hour. The cows were returning from the pasture, raising dust with their hoofs. I saw them fording the river. Then came some cowherd boys crossing the river with their cows. No sooner did I behold this scene than I cried out, "Oh Krishna, where are you?" and became unconscious. I wanted to visit Shyamakunda and Radhakunda. So Mathur Babu sent me there in a palanquin. See, Thakur, he, uh, his feet were so tender and he had no physical strength. All those years of austerities, he had to be carried in a palanquin when he went to places like that. We had a long way to go. Food was put in the palanquin. While going over the meadow, I was overpowered with emotion and wept. "O Krishna, I find everything the same. Only you are not here. This is the very meadow where you tended the cows." Fridoy followed me on foot. I was bathed in tears. I couldn't ask the bearers to stop the palanquin. See, now he just said that he behaves like an ordinary man. Who will, who will have these types of experiences? At Shamakunda and Radhakunda, I saw the holy men living in small mud huts, facing away from the road, lest their eyes should fall on men. They were engaged in spiritual discipline. One should visit the 12 Grove. What is that? Huh? Dadosh, what does it say? Dadosh Bond. Huh? I don't know what it is. Anyhow, this is the type of setup that Swami Brahmananda and Swami Turiyananda stayed in and for months on end. And Swami
Kusum Lake. That is the Kusum.
No, Kusum Lake. Is it?
Kusum Tal, yeah.
Huh.
They have a temple, the big palace.
Anyhow, they just stayed in one of these huts.
One room.
They stayed in the different huts, and Swami Turiyananda, he would go and bake food and bring it for Swami Brahmananda, and not to disturb him, he would leave it in the corner of the room or outside the door. And sometimes he would come back the next day and saw it was still there, that Maharaj hadn't touched it. He's meditating the whole time and everything. And a very holy atmosphere, these places. I went into Samadhi at the sight of the image of Panku Vihari. In that state, I wanted to touch it. I did not want to visit Govindaji twice. See, sometimes Sri Ramakrishna would have a desire to go someplace. It would be fulfilled. No need to do it again. At Mathura, I dreamt of Krishna as the cowherd boy. Hridoy and Mathur Babu had the same dream. To Surendra, you have both yoga and bhoga. See, we see with Sri Ramakrishna, he'll scold somebody, then he'll be especially nice to them also. How that time he took the mala and then he put it on his neck and danced, and how happy Surendra was and everything. You have both, yoga and bhoga. There are different classes of sages, the Brahmarshi, the Devarshi, and the Rajarshi. Shukadeva is an example of the Brahmarshi. He didn't keep even one book with him. An example of the Devarshi is Narada. Janaka was a Rajarshi, devoted to selfless work. These are all Just different types of highly realized souls that come from different ways of life. Well, one can be a great realized soul as a king, and one can be one as a poor Brahmin. One can be one. Uh, Narada, he would go back and forth from the uh, divine realm to this world. He was like a deva. The devotee of the Divine Mother attains dharma and moksha. He enjoys artha and kama as well. These are the four different aims of life. This is why we read in Chandi and other things how we pray to the mother for anything. That the householder stage of life is artha and kama are legitimate. This is the very curious thing that Thakur was always talking about kamani kanchan. And yet, these are the two things that are considered uh, necessary and useful and helpful in the householder stage of life. That we should fulfill our desires and we should earn some money and have some property so that we can be good contributing members of society. So, at that stage of life, one can pray to the Divine Mother for those things also. Thakur, when he's talking about God realization is the only goal of life. We shouldn't pray for anything but pure devotion. He's talking about a high class of devotee. Those who came to him also weren't ordinary people. So the devotee of the Divine Mother attains dharma and moksha. Dharma is necessary throughout life, and moksha, of course, will be some type of God realization. He enjoys artha and kama as well. Once I saw you in a vision as the child of the Divine Mother. This is Surendra he's talking about. You have both yoga and bhoga. And we see that he did this Annapurna, Jagadhatri Puja, Durga Puja. So he was a devotee of the Divine Mother. You have both yoga and bhoga. Otherwise, your countenance would look dry. The man who renounces all looks dry. Now, Thakur is talking about a certain class of sadhu, and also these ancient rishis and everything that didn't care for anything but their own liberation and everything, and didn't mix with people and everything. He's not talking about, of course, these are all renouncing monks that the disciples will become. Once I saw a devotee of the Divine Mother at the bathing ghat on the Ganges. He was eating his meal and at the same time worshiping the mother. He looked on himself as the mother's child. Now, this, of course, is a real no-no to be taking food at the same time doing worship. That you're breaking a lot of different rules, and of course, eating with your hand and not washing and putting in your mouth and everything, and doing it means that such an intimate relationship and looking upon oneself as a child. Child doesn't care about any of these things. Child will start eating with the right hand and switch to the left hand, uh, and mix everything together and then eat off of somebody else's plate, give the plate to his friend. They don't know about any of these things. So this is that attitude of some of the worshippers of the Divine Mother. He looked on himself as the mother's child. But it isn't good to have much money. Now, this Surendra, he had a lot of money, but he gave it away. A lot of it he gave away. Now, he's talking about Jadu Malik. Jadu Malik is different. He had a lot of money and wasn't so generous and was always trying to make more. And rather worldly man, although he loved Sri Ramakrishna and appreciated him, but not really as a spiritual aspirant. I find that Jadu Malik is drowned in worldliness. It is because he has too much money. Noban Niyogi, too, has both yoga and bhoga. I saw him and his son waving the fan before the image of the Divine Mother at the time of the Durga Puja. Surendra, sir, why can't I meditate? We saw that he's a straight talker, spashtavakta, that whatever is on his mind, he'll say. Other people would be a little embarrassed, or they would put on the front and try to make it look like they're good meditators. Everyone be impressed with them. He's not like that. He had that kind of innocence and very straightforward. So he didn't hesitate to say that. Why can't I meditate? Now, all of us can ask that question. I've yet to meet the person who says, "Oh yeah, meditation's easy," and if they do, then it's just big talk, right? Yeah, who can say meditation is easy? There's constant struggles throughout the lifetime. So, why, sir, why can't I meditate, Master? You remember God and think of Him, don't you? Surendra, yes, sir. I go to sleep repeating the word mother. Now, Thakur likes this very much. This is a very nice habit that when we fall asleep, to be repeating the mantra, doing japa at the time, fall asleep while not formal japa, but just repeating silently to ourselves. Now, this, Master, that is very good. It will be enough if you remember God and think of Him. This Sharan Monan, Smarana Mana. This is something that is very hopeful for us. It gives us a feeling that if we can do this intense type of meditation, that it'll be enough if we practice this Smarana Mana. It really goes back to this idea of Leela. This idea of Leela. If we constantly fix the mind on this divine play of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, the direct disciples, all of them, or if we're the Vaishnavas, the play of Sri Krishna and the Gopis, Rama, Sita, all of the different types of worship in India will have some type of Leela with it. Even if this Leela is in Vaikuntha or this Leela is in Kailash, thinking of that play between Durga and Shiva and all of the events that we read in the Puranas and everything. This will engage the mind and it will work some magic on the mind and will keep the mind from thinking worldly thoughts. So if we can do that, it's not with the same intensity of meditation, but it will definitely elevate the mind. And this is something that is very, very important as we get older. Because as we get older, it's harder to sit for a long time. The body aches, the mind wanders and everything. So if we can simply do this type of constant remembrance of this divine play, and even sit in the shrine with eyes open. We read a beautiful thing last night, that Thakur was saying that when you go to the Divine Mother, that some people said they'll close their eyes in meditation. He said, no, when you're home and you're not in her presence, you can do it. Now, enjoy that vision, and let the mind revel in that divine play and everything. We can also do that sometime. I know that Swami Swananji used to tell people sometimes when they would say, I can't meditate, they'll say, open your eyes, look at the picture of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Swamiji. Now think about them. It's not meditation, but it's better than the type of meditation that is just mind is completely wandering, that we've lost it, is thinking about all sorts of things. This doesn't have that intensity, but there's something joyful about it. And if we can get it into that habit, I've spoken many times about this Lila Dhyana, this meditation. Actually, I was asked to write an article on Lila Chintana. It wasn't really supposed to be about that type of meditation. It was about just letting the mind dwell on this divine play. It doesn't have to be with eyes closed in meditation. And it's something that can be subtly there throughout the day, that part of the mind is thinking about that divine play. Say, mother has a newborn child, but she has to go to work. So he has somebody look after the child. She goes to work throughout the day doing her work, but most of the mind, the whole, is just dwelling or thinking about the child at home, waiting to go back home. So we can form that habit. If we do, then it changes things. We don't get too involved with external things. That becomes more real, that lila, and we start to feel that this divine play is not imagination. I like this idea, the Vaishnava idea, this Nitya Vrindavan, this idea that this play with Krishna and the Gopis is going on now on some subtle level. That Thakur is still enacting his play in Dakshineswar with his direct disciples and Holy Mother and everything, even now. All we have to do is think about it, and we can be there. And if the mind is there, then it's not here. Now, people will say it's just imagination, and that this type of escapism and everything, but it has a tremendous effect on us. It can bring great joy and peace and transform us also. So this is very, very important. It will be enough if you remember God and think of Him. Now, will He say this to Narendra and the others? No. He will say you dive deep in meditation. They had that capacity. So everyone is different. It's not that it's easy for anyone. Maybe Narendra it was easy, or Maharaj, but for most people, it's not very easy. But we have to try. So we do both. If we can fix the mind a little bit on this in meditation, then throughout the day it's easier also. So we have to try. But really, when we look at the list of disciplines that Thakur talks about, when people ask how to realize God, we know he has a list. He changes it around every once in a while. Mostly it's a holy company, and then solitude, and then prayer, and then meditation gets thrown in some place. But it's not that, like he'll say, dive deep in meditation. Of course, he says dive deep. Dive deep doesn't have to be dive deep in meditation. It can also be dive deep with a tremendous longing of heart. That's also diving deep. Having that intense vakulata. That's also a type of diving deep. It's not necessarily that sitting with the body unmoving and mind perfectly still and not wavering and everything. This is very difficult. But we shouldn't give it up because it's difficult. But at some point, we'll understand that we're reaching that point where this constant remembrance and recollection of God and the divine play will be better for us, more suited for us as we get older, especially. So, Master, that is very good. It will be enough if you remember God and think of Him. Sri Ramakrishna had taken Surendra's responsibilities on himself. Why should Surendra worry about anything? It was evening. The master was sitting on the floor of his room with the devotees. He was talking to them about yoga and the 6 centers. These are described in the Shiva Samhita. Now, you remember, that's why M went to the room earlier, that Harish told them that they were reading from that, but they weren't at that time. So now it comes. Master, Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna are the 3 principal nerves. The Sushumna is center, and the others go around in like a figure 8. And generally, we function with this figure 8 thing, and with spiritual Kundalini rises, it goes to the center. Swamiji, of course, explains all of this in his Raja Yoga. So these are the 3 principal nerves. All the lotuses are located in the Sushumna. So our ordinary sense experience and everything doesn't utilize this. As the mind goes higher and higher, and we reach different levels of spiritual realization and everything, it's through the Sushumna where these lotuses are located. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, he understood all of this as part of the subtle body, not this physical body, even though we do a cross section of the spinal cord and all of that. It seems to show this figure 8 and this central thing and everything. Swamiji makes a point of that also. All the lotuses are located in the Sushumna. They are formed of consciousness. Chinmaya. Like a tree made of wax. The branches, twigs, fruits, and so forth, all of wax. The Kundalini lies in the lotus of the Muladhara. So this is at the base of the spine. The lotus has 4 petals. Each of the lotuses, these are all mystical things. They all have different colors. They have different numbers of petals. These are meant for different types of meditations and tantric practices. Sri Ramakrishna used to do this. They would see him there meditating like this and like this. And then M asks, is this the master meditating on Kundalini? The Kundalini lies in the lotus of the Muladhara. Now, for Sri Ramakrishna, it never was there. It never went below the heart center. They said once it goes up to a certain point, it won't go all the way down. The lower centers are all of our passions, our lust, greed, pride, anger, all of those things, when it's there, and our worldly desires and everything. The primordial energy resides in all bodies as the Kundalini. She is like a sleeping snake coiled up. She, because this is the power of the Divine Mother. This is one of the ways of understanding the union of Shiva and Shakti, that Shiva lies in the Sahasrara, 1,000-petaled lotus of the head, and this realization, the illumination, is that union. Shiva doesn't move, but Divine Mother, for power, she goes up in that union, the top of the head. This is that samadhi, or realization. The primordial energy resides in all bodies at the Kundalini. She is like a sleeping snake coiled up. Kundalini means that, means coiled, coiled snake. Of the form of a sleeping snake, having the Muladhara for her abode, to M. The Kundalini is speedily awakened if one follows the path of bhakti. Now, generally, we associate Kundalini and everything else with meditation. Or this Raja Yoga, but pranayama, kriyas, all of these different things that through these intense types of kriya practices, asana, pranayama, other things like that, the Kundalini can be raised. For Sri Ramakrishna, it's a little bit artificial. They can be raised, they can come back down again also. It can be raised through kirtan, then it can also come back down. But through genuine devotion, he said, this is the best way to awaken it. That tremendous feeling of love, this also will awaken that sleeping Kundalini and make it rise. So Kundalini is speedily awakened if one follows the path of bhakti. God cannot be seen unless she is awakened. Now, this is just another way of saying that God realization means the mind has to rise to a higher level. It's not with these ordinary eyes, not with this ordinary mind. And this is one way of understanding this mind rising to another level, understood in terms of Kundalini rising. I sometimes think of the Kundalini as a kind of a thermometer, that we can try to devise all different methods to get the mercury to rise higher, but all we have to really do is make the room hotter. Automatically it goes up. We don't have to worry about the thermometer. Oh, how do I make the thermometer go higher? The mercury go higher in the thermometer. No, we say, how do I make the room hotter? So we don't have to worry about that. If we can intensify our spiritual practice, our devotion, longing, and everything, automatically it'll go up. So these practices that artificially try to awaken Kundalini, especially intense pranayama and everything, they may backfire on us. Yeah. Sing earnestly and secretly in solitude. Waken, O Mother, O Kundalini, whose nature is bliss eternal. Jagoma, Jagoma, that's Rai sings that song, the Jagoma. Awake, Mother, awake. Yes, sleeping Kundalini. Waken, O Mother, O Kundalini, whose nature is bliss eternal. Thou art the serpent coiled in sleep in the lotus of the Muladhara. Ram Prasad achieved perfection through singing. Of course, he did spiritual practice. He was a great sadhaka, but it was really through there's not just singing, but composing these songs, and uh, that tremendous love and longing he had for the vision of Mother. He was really the ideal for Sri Ramakrishna. How many times he complained, Mother, you revealed yourself to Ram Prasad, why not to me? So he really had the highest regard for this Ram Prasad. Achieve perfection through singing. One obtains the vision of God if one sings with the yearning heart. So it's not the singing, it's the yearning. Yearning of the heart. If one can sing, good. If one prays with a yearning heart, good. M. Grief and distress of mind disappear if one has these experiences but once. Master, that is true. I always remember that incident in the life of Swami Shivananda. Somebody was singing a song that, oh Lord, I've had your vision. Why do you withhold that vision from me now? I long to have the vision again. And he got very angry. And he said, what is this? One has the vision of God once, whole life is changed. Whole life is transformed. That's enough. Even once is enough. So Sri Ramakrishna says, M. Grief and distress of mind disappear if one has these experiences but once. Master, that is true. Distress of mind disappears forever. Now, Sri Ramakrishna had that highest experience, and yet, when he did his sadhana for other forms, again, that feeling of tremendous pain and agony and not having that realization, that's a different thing. And Chaitanya Deva, after having that union, and again, that horrible feeling of separation from God, that's a different thing. It doesn't mean that. That's their own special type of a spiritual sadhana, that's a specific type of path. But in terms of any type of worldly distress, worrying about ordinary things, that's all gone. I shall tell you a few things about yoga. You see, the mother bird doesn't break the shell until the chick inside the egg is matured. So now he's telling M that you've reached that stage where it's okay for the mother to break the shell because you're formed enough. It's not that you're just a newborn that's not ready for any higher experience or anything like that. It's a very hopeful thing for M to hear. You see, the mother bird doesn't break the shell until the chick inside the egg is matured. The egg is hatched in the fullness of time. It is necessary to practice some spiritual discipline. Now, those who came to Sri Ramakrishna, they did more than anybody, and they needed it less than others. This is the funny thing. That Sri Ramakrishna, he could just raise them up like that. But they were of such high spiritual standing, and that they also did the intense spiritual practice. It is necessary to practice some spiritual discipline. The Guru no doubt does everything for the disciple, but at the end, he makes the disciple work a little himself. When cutting down a big tree, a man cuts almost through the trunk. Then he stands aside for a moment, and the tree falls down with a crash. The farmer brings water to his field through a canal from the river. He stands aside when only a little digging remains to be done to connect the field with the water. Then the earth becomes soaked and falls of itself, and the water of the river pours into the canal in torrents. This is also an example Thakur uses for grace. That self-effort in grace, that we have to only do so much, then we step aside, and then grace comes. Automatically, the tree will fall on its own. I mean, Brahman will fill us up. A man is able to see God as soon as he gets rid of ego and other limitations. He sees God as soon as he is free from such feelings as, I am a scholar, I am the son of such and such a person, I am wealthy, I am honorable, and so forth. God alone is real and all else unreal. The world is illusory. Here it's really anitya. It is not illusory, it really impermanent. Impermanent. That is discrimination. One cannot assimilate spiritual instruction without discrimination. So this starts a little bit of a new section, and we'll stop here. So we're still, this is page 363, still on M at Dakshineswar part 1. Om Niranjanam Nityamanandarupam Bhaktanukamhathudavikraham Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasanam. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who was stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. And we wish everyone a happy Diwali, Kali Puja. We'll celebrate Kali Puja here Monday night starting at 7:30.